YouTube. So I mentioned in the earlier video about my asthma, and that the first video I ever put online I sounded really bad in. Didn't know I had asthma at the time and was dealing with that, and it wasn't fun. If I sound a little different this time, it's because I just recorded this whole video and didn't have my camera on. I really need to get a camera that I have a display on the other side so I can see, but for now I gotta work with what I got. So asthma is something that once you have it, there is no cure, so you have to live with it. There has to be a management for it, and you do that forever. So that's why I want to make a video about it, because I had to change after I figured out what it was. I had to change what I did to manage it. That being said, the first thing I want to say is a disclaimer, and that is asthma is an extremely serious condition. I just had someone that I knew here in Salt Lake. It was well known and loved by a lot of people. Jeff Weiss was a film critic here in Salt Lake and was on Geek Show podcast and the Radio from Hell show and quite a few other medias, and was just, I'd met him a few times, was a great guy, and unfortunately a few weeks ago he had a massive asthma attack that ended up being what killed him. And he was older than me by, I guess, quite a bit, about 15 years or more, a little bit more, but definitely too young to die. Shouldn't have happened. Terrible thing, and asthmas can be very serious. So as I go through these videos, I'm going to talk about how I tapered off my medication and what I did to replace it. I did not do it the correct way. I did it on my own, and I didn't check with my doctor, and it was risky. So check with your doctor before you do any of that stuff, because it is serious, especially if you have serious asthma. It's not good. So that being said, check with your doctor. Don't do what I did. This is strictly for informational, and I'd like to learn if anyone's done the same thing or something similar, or there's more that I could do to make it better. So we'll get into it. How I found out I have asthma is the main part of this video, because I was almost 30 at the time. I was 29, getting ready to turn 30, and never been sick. I hardly ever get sick. Like every 2 years I'll get a flu that'll put me down for a couple days. Never really have to get antibiotics or anything like that. I just would take some cold medicines or flu medicines to hold back the symptoms, and I'd just work through it. 2-3 days, I'd be fine. And that's really all I ever had wrong with me for years, probably 15 years. And then about 3 years ago, I started to get what I thought was just this flu, but it would not go away. And after weeks and weeks, it would not go away. My wife finally made me go to the doctor, and I'm not exaggerating by weeks and weeks. It was probably 2 months, more than 2 months. My wife made me go to the doctor. Like I said, I haven't been to the doctor. I haven't had a reason to. All I've done is physicals for work. Never had a problem. So I look up a doctor. I go to this doctor, and the doctor does a few tests, and she says, well, you have asthma. And I kind of said, whatever. I'm almost 30 years old, never had a problem with asthma. I go hiking, I go hunting, I go fishing. I mean, when I say hiking, I'm talking 12, 13,000 feet I've gone before, for days at a time, never had a problem. So to have someone tell me I had asthma, I was like, whatever. I was wrong, but that's what I thought at the time. So my wife wouldn't let me drop it, fortunately, and she said, well, you need to go to my doctor instead. So I went to her doctor. Her doctor did some tests, more extensive test and said, you have asthma. I said, okay, 2 doctors. My wife trusts this one. She seemed really good. So I listened to Dr. Price and said, okay, what do we need to do? And she put me on an albuterol inhaler, which killed off a lot of the symptoms right away and helped for a few weeks. I was still... excuse me. I was still having a lot of symptoms though, and some pretty bad attacks. Couldn't figure out what was causing it. I've never had allergies, so first thing they thought, well, maybe it's an allergy. I've never had any allergies, so I couldn't figure that out either. So got to watching it, checking out when it happened, and the first clue was we went on vacation for about a week, and I felt better that week. I felt a lot better that week. Wasn't back to 100%, didn't have to use the albuterol much at all, and I felt a lot different. I believe we went to North Carolina, went out to the coast for a couple days, and I felt completely different. I'd done a lot better. When I came back, I had a pretty in-depth job rebuilding a copier. I worked for a copier company at the time. And it was a really, really messy machine. The developer and toner had a leak and they dumped all over the back of the machine. And when I say big copier, I'm talking like the equivalent of a gallon paint jug was just on the floor behind the machine. And I had to clean out the machine, which had close to that much in it as well, and then vacuum it all out. Just a lot of stuff. If you're not sure what developer is, if you know that black powder that's in your toner, your printer, your copier, the developer is what carries that to the page, and it's 100 times finer than flour. It's this really fine, nasty stuff made out of metal. And I was around that for a long time. I worked in that business for 10 years. And come to find out, that's what caused it. And also, it may not have totally caused it. It definitely irritated it. And it probably did cause it. But regardless, that's what I found out it was. To the point that I had to switch jobs, because when I was around it, it just made it... I couldn't live. I was dying. So what happened was, after that big toner cleanup, I went home that night and I made that video about the Noah's tarp that I got. And you can tell in the video I was having a hard time talking and I was coughing, and that night, I should have went to the ER. I woke up about 2 hours after I did that video. And I couldn't breathe. It was terrible. And should have went to the ER, got up, set up, took some albuterol, hung out, and decided to go in the next morning. And that's what I did, is I went in the next morning. And Dr. Price is from Europe, from England. She was gone for the day, and so she's on vacation, sorry. And the person filling in for her, Dr. Kate, is the pulmonary and heart specialist for that entire hospital. He ran a lot of tests, knew I was having major issues as soon as I showed up. Come to find out, I was using 10% of my lungs. Fortunately, that 10% works really well, but it was having to work really hard, and that's the reason I was having trouble. My oxygen level had dropped, which it never done before, but it wasn't in the part where they worry, it was just low. But it was obvious there was issues. So I don't remember what drug it was for sure, so don't quote me on this. I want to say it was prednisone, but he gave me a nebulizer that had some mix of steroids in it to open my lungs up, and that fixed the problem a little bit right away to get it to where I could actually breathe. And then I had to take these prednisone pills, and it was a massive dose, like 20 or so the first day, and then tapered off by 2 pills until I got down to 2. So pretty long stretch of getting my lungs were in bad shape. So make it to where those could open up. And he started me on Advair, which if you haven't seen it, it's that. This is the low dosage. I was on the highest dosage to start. Again, I do not recommend tapering off of anything without your doctor's consent and oversight. I did, don't do it. This is the lowest dose. This is what I ended up at. Now I don't use it at all. We'll get into that a little later, but that's what I was on. So I took that and was feeling a lot better. Had to quit my job, go to work doing some different work. And once I did that, I started to have quite a bit of improvement. The problem I ran into is I was on the highest dose of Advair twice a day. And I started to get some sorry, I don't know why I'm yawning. Started to get some really bad muscle pains. And I have some weird dreams as it is, but was having some really weird dreams, and I already have trouble sleeping, and it was making it 100 times worse. So I decided I had to figure out how to get off of that and still be able to breathe. So I started doing research online and found a lot of different theories and a lot of different ways people had done it, and started to play with those a little bit to see if I could do something different. And that's what I'll get into in the videos following this, is different things I found that help a lot, and what I do so that I don't have to take that Advair now. But I just want to kind of open a dialogue, I guess, because asthma is something a lot of people have. One of the people that helps me with it, she does have to take Advair. She's on a pretty high dosage, and she has to stay on it. She does much better than I do on a lot of things, but she still has to have it. I'm fortunate in the fact that I don't have to take it. But there are people out there that you have to have it. Otherwise, the alternative is, you know, what happened to it can kill you easily. It was a shock to me and a reminder that to be careful and to really pay attention to it, because it can get you quick. So again, just want to kind of open up a dialogue as to ways to control asthma and ways to help make it better that maybe you can use with the medication you have. Best case scenario, maybe it does help somebody taper off of it under their doctor's supervision. Not the way I did it, but that's what I would hope. Drugs always have a side effect, more so on some than others. On me, it was really bad. I couldn't deal with it. Some people, they take it and they don't have many issues. So if that works for you, that's great. There's still some things you can do that make it better and can make you healthier. So that's what I'll go into on the next video. So until then, I hope everyone has a good one. And if you like this or want to see more of these, hit the thumbs up button and we'll go from there. So again, have a good one, and I will see you guys on the next video about this subject.